Greetings, HashTable coders. Try to make it as quick as possible here. I could talk about this for hours, but we'll try to go quickly. Let's look at the Java side here for coding tips on the HashTable. A few suggestions, few ideas type deal. So what do we have for a HashTable? I'll let you look at that. I won't read that word for word. That wouldn't be very exciting, right? Just say that it's really a cool one because it really showcases algorithms. Because we're taking two subcomponents that are slow in terms of searching, and we're using those, somehow we're magically making the fastest search known to human beings, actually, the hash table. In terms of big O, you can't get any faster. It's O1, which is the fastest possible. So let's take a look at coding. So where do we start? Well, what I like to do anyway, I like to take a baby step. I like to get a little bit of confidence going. After I get a little bit of a handle on concepts, I'm not going to drill real deep into concepts. I like to do it iteratively, a little coding, a little concept, back and forth. I think iteration is the way to go. But anyway, so what I would do is maybe take a class header and actually right away, just copy that. Right away, actually just build a class shell. There we go. So we have a class shell. I mean, it's a baby step, yeah. But for me, it gives me a little bit of confidence that, well, I've got the structure set up now. I know that an object user could actually use that construct that object, knowing this header. Headers are the communication piece for us object coders, right? Headers. Okay. The next thing, I would actually go with IVARs next. Then I like to get the structure set up because I know what we're working with. And again, it's always iterative. We might add IVARs later on, but I like to have the structure set up that way. That when we're doing the logic, we want to know what IVARs we are using. So, and that's usually provided for us in some way or another. Or we might have to derive it, but in this case, I think it is provided. If we look through here, usually designs are usually a good place to look, right? Because it's actually a suggested final design, and I'll say suggested because you can code this how you want to, coder's choice, as long as it satisfies the ADT and the performance requirements. But I'm just going to actually then copy that in here to get started. First thing we have is we have buckets, right? And it's going to be a private, it's going to be an IVAR. It tells us it's a dynamic array. Well, we know what the dynamic array is generic, so this is a to-do here, and we'll do that later. Buckets, all right? The other ones are just trivial integer guys, right? That's going to be private, and that is going to be an int, two of these. One is going to be the max load ratio, and the other is going to be size, I believe, right? All right. So without even really thinking, just kind of copying a couple things here, have the object structure all set up. So it's not a bad start, I don't think. Construction, I think, is a huge one to actually go with next because, for one thing, it's where a lot of blocker bugs show up. If we can't construct an object, we can't. Our object user isn't even going to be able to get a start with us, right? If you can't construct, you can't send messages to an object, right? So you have to be able to construct. So that's a good one to start with. And again, it's really provided for us a good starting point. And it is, again, I'm just going to copy that into this area here, format it a little bit. And now we have a couple methods that are in place here. Get that set up. All right, so now we have the method shells or the method, the method headers set up, right? Class header, method header, IVARs. Good starting point. We have one freebie here, so I'm going to take a freebie right away, and that is that this method here we should be able to see right away that this can call this one. It's got to call it with these values, but no reason to reinvent any kind of wheel here. So just going to say return hash table, and we're going to call this method's going to call that one. All right, and it tells us actually that it wants a 16 there. And it says that this is coder's choice. And if you read about that in the chapter and such, you'll see that this is a pretty good default, 0.75. So we have one method already done. That was a pretty quick check off, right? In terms of this method here, I'm going to let you have some fun with that one. But I will say that you'll find out in here that this is how the construction is, or the calc can be done in terms of how, or the initialization can be done, I should say, is in there. And also you might want to look at these static factory methods and how they work. So this is not very hard. It's not a lot of logic, but you'll have some fun with that, I think. All right, so now we are actually already to the point where we're writing instance methods, logic, right? For me, that's the easier point because these are more sort of one-offs, you know. But now we have the object structure, we have the construction, we have the header. Now we're getting just to the logic, the behavior of the data structure, right? So that's all about the ADT usually, right? So let's go again to the same spot here. And if we go to methods, required methods, it'll tell us about that. You can let you read that. But I'm going to jump right to the ADT. The ADT is gold to us coders, right? If we're going to use objects, if we're going to code objects, because it tells us the big three. And what we mean by the big three, of course, is the name of the method, size, and the return type. It tells us there that it returned the number of elements, so that's obviously an integer type. And it tells us in this case there's no parameters, so we have a to-do here to get that in place, but we have that set up for us. Same thing here, and actually a lot of, in Java, of course, a lot of your IDEs will automatically generate these, but I don't mind working through, especially if there's only 9. It gives me a little feel of what's going to happen, or what's going on, I should say, with the object. So we have get is another one. I'm just going to do one more here. Now this is what are we going to return there, right? And what are we going to, our parameters going to be? We're going to return here actually the value. We're going to return a value. And when we say value, if we read about that in the chapter as well, the generic params here are key, are K and V. Those are data types, right? We know from our OO class that these are data types, generic parameters. And that's the one for the key, and that's the data type for the value. It tells us that we're going to return a value, so the data type then is that V. The get is going to be a key, so that's actually the K data type. And a key is coming in. So there we go there. To me, this is when I'm coding, this is where I like to be, because now I feel pretty confident that I can get this working. And why do I feel confident? Well, because I'm going to run tests. I'm going to put a tester, in other words, another class, into another directory, and I'm going to call this object here and run tests on it as I code simultaneously. So we'll let you do that. The algorithms are in the chapter, and solve those how you want, or you can go by the suggestions in the chapter as well, and the concepts and such. What else? The only other thing I think in terms of housekeeping that's kind of something to kind of keep track of is to make sure we get our packages right. So we'd want to make sure we get these into the right Java package, which also means directory, right? So here we go back to that challenge for 1 second, and we have required. Notice these are pretty helpful. Required headers, required method, required subdirectories. So in this case here, we have HashTable that's going into the hash directory. All right, and this dictionary idea, which is provided, goes in there. And then, and when I say provided, it's not a zip file, but it's actually just provided in the links you'll see in the text. What else do we have? Oh, yes, if you add more classes, and you can add many more if you want, but we'll need to add at least one more, and that's an association. Put those in also in the hash directory. All right, so that is what I would suggest for a starting point. Just some ideas to food for thought for you. We'll talk to you soon.